Topic of today's call is about our telco work, so branded tokens and rewards, linked to the video we put out just over a week and a half ago. And I'm joined today on stage by our VP of Partnerships, Adam Filer. Good morning, Adam. How are you?
Morning, Luke. Very well, thank you.
Good. Thank you for joining us. So, with all the intro and rules out of the way, over to you, Adam.
Thank you very much. Yes, so good to be here again. And very pleased to speak to you all about this new concept that we've been developing now, and it is in partnership mainly with telcos, but as I'll explain, is a generic solution. So jumping straight in, the problem with telcos in general is always staying relevant for their customers, preventing churn, and in these times with very low margins, they want to be able to offer programs and incentives for value to the customers, while reducing development costs and overheads. And in a few, 5 years ago, there was a lot of incentives put through telcos with packages and bundles and trying to get people to see value in more than just the mobile services. And so that was one of the driving forces. And the second concept is something that we've already developed when Minima first started, which is the idea of tokenizing mobile data. The big challenge for mobile operators is how to settle data roaming charges and how to settle very complex billing systems. So Minima was able to demonstrate a proof of concept which we conducted with Manx Telecom from the Isle of Man as a way of having a tokenized system where all usage was recorded on blockchain, and the settlement was extremely rapid. In fact, it could even lead to real-time settlement of the data, almost as a pay-as-you-go scenario. So we've had that in the back of our mind since we've done this, and the two concepts have now amalgamated into this concept that we are calling adConnect. And what it does is it allows incumbent telcos with their customer base to provide co-branded mobile minutes or mobile data. So the key concept here is that the first application will be pay as you go. So people who do top up or they buy mobile minutes either spontaneously or even can work in a subscription. The users or the customers of the telcos buy the mobile minutes as before, but now the mobile minutes are co-branded with third-party retailers, which unlocks access to a type of loyalty within that brand. So this means, for example, you could buy your mobile minutes from one telco operator, but you could also accrue tokens that you could redeem with a third party. So it might be something as simple as a coffee chain, and you rack up enough points to buy a coffee. It could be very well-known branded companies, but equally what's so important for this new concept is it opens up a marketplace for a lot of retail brands to be able to have visualization and get noticed. So our rollout strategy has been focused with the telcos operating in Africa. So we have had a number of very positive discussions with the major African telcos, whereby we can offer this as a minted token system. So in other words, they continue to sell their mobile minutes, and then we will then build up a marketplace, allowing basically a revenue stream for the telcos, which is something that they are obviously very pleased about, a additional market for these minutes, and thirdly, the ability for customers to spend these tokens with third parties. And this then leads on to, as I said, this marketplace where people can filter the brands that they would like to get points for according to their needs and interests. And I'm particularly interested about the ability to be able to filter from a geolocational position. So, for example, if you're living in a village, you're able to say, well, I want to see co-branded tokens coming from suppliers of these tokens from my particular area. So that's the general concept. What makes it novel is the fact that the tokenization over Minima is very, very simple for the telco brands. As we know, minting tokens on Minima is cheap and efficient. But the key here is that the tokens will sit on the mobile device, and it will only be seen as a cost to the company providing it once the tokens are issued. The current problem with most loyalty programs is that the provider of the tokens or the loyalty points has this as a cost on their P&L. It's an outlay. So in lieu of these tokens being redeemed, they have to stand for the cost of what these tokens represent. With our concept, these tokens can sit unspent on a user's device, and only at the time that the tokens are used does it come at a cost. So it reduces cost of development, and it importantly allows the users to decide how and when they spend the token. So that's the concept, Luke. And additionally, you can add interesting rules of incentivization. So you could have, as you know, you can have a time lock contract. So you could limit the time in which these tokens are available, or you could have a time in which they run out. So there's a lot of additional functionality that we can add to the tokens once this concept rolls out. So this is in a very early stage. We don't have a working demo of this as to date, but it's got a lot of interest across the different telcos that we've been speaking to. As I said, it comes at a very low risk for both the third party and the telcos, and it comes at an advantage for the customers. So that's the main concept. And regarding questions about how this is different and how is it good for Minima, well, clearly these will be minted on Minima, so it comes at as a value for Minima, decreasing the coin supply. We will probably have a Minima token involved, but we may not need to if the brands want to be completely detached from the Minima ecosystem. They can be, except for the fact that, of course, they'll be minting on Minima. And it will also mean that we will have a huge increase in the number of node and node runners to operate on these services. So in the final UX, this will be embedded into the app owned by the telco operator, but everybody will be running a node, and the transfer and the functionality of these tokens will then be seen across the Minima network. So we see this as a win-win for both the telcos and third parties, but clearly for Minima, as it will maintain a very steady user base. And the typical numbers are, of course, in the millions in Africa. So the one particular major telco that we're talking to has a reach of 200 million users. So again, very interesting and exciting times for this use case.
Absolutely. Like you say, you get into the telcos and their customer base, then each of their phones become nodes. And presumably, if any telco decides to do it with Minima tokens, then that also creates a situation where they're having to buy some or all from the market. Would that be a correct assumption?
Exactly. So the way we envisage is that they basically commit to a certain amount of Minima to then pre-mint the tokens, and then they also use Minima to basically finance the transactions. So ultimately, as I said, our end goal is, of course, that this will all be run through Minima coins, and they'll use this for payment. But importantly, to get going, we can just simply piggyback on their existing payment rails. So the telco themselves don't need to have the concern of onboarding or off-ramp Minima, but the key for us is that the users will then run the nodes, and then the normal burn and depreciation will take place. So this is the concept, and in terms of the perceived value for the partnerships, we're able to have a very rapid prototype deployment. There's not a lot of extra work that needs to take place on the infrastructure because it's already the cellular connectivity. It's very cost effective, and the marketing around the marketplace, I think, is going to offer huge opportunities for new ecosystems. It also can change according to customer exposure, and everybody's talking about the power of data. Well, here you're going to have real info into what customers want to see and want to buy, just by simply they'll be voting, essentially choosing which branded tokens they want. And we also have the opportunity to allow people to share, to gift, and to swap tokens. So ultimately we see it as a generic token that has value, and the value is imposed by the value associated with the particular brand. So you may have a token for a very expensive clothing brand, and you have one token for that, and that could equally have the equivalent of 10 tokens for a coffee, for example. So this is this is the way that we are seeing in moving out. Everybody's talking about the migration from Web 2 to Web 3, and this is slap bang in the middle of the Web 3 experience, where you've got existing infrastructure migrating into a digital realm. So we see that the revenue models is, first of all, that the third parties will pay for the branding fee. You'll also have increased customer spend because people will be encouraged to buy the minutes just to keep up the token acquisition, and it's also a very easy way to monetize the data across the network. So this is as I said, attracted attention first of all from the marketing side, but now from the business units that we've been speaking to. So in terms of test and rollout, we see pilot tests possible to roll out here within a few months. We have had several ongoing discussions also with a telco in Europe that has quite far reach into different industries. They're not just simply mobile minutes, but also into anything with cellular connectivity, including cars. So there are, of course, further implications rather than just simply attached to the mobile minutes. And again, as I said, we see this as a generic solution. So once the proof of concept has been shown with the telcos, we see this as a very standard offer that we can apply in lots of different areas as well.
Fantastic, thanks for that, Adam. So what we'll do now is we'll move on to the AMA kind of segment of the call. Some of the questions have already been answered through what you've just been sort of filling us in on, so I'll kind of go past those ones, and we'll start with this one. So the question is how will this product affect the community? And I suppose there's a few ways of looking at the coin price, and also how they would benefit as a consumer.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we are always looking at ways to thank and reward our community, and we are able to, influence the generation of which tokens that we want associated with Minima, of course. So we very much hope that the community will get involved and be the recipients of tokens as soon as this is in operation. As you say, I mean, sort of from a larger perspective, of course, adoption is key, adoption and utility, and there's no better way than showing utility of Minima than, you know, potentially 100 million users using the technology daily for transfer of value and information. So, I mean, this is at the core of Minima offer, of course. So I think in terms of exposure, in terms of value, that is, you know, that's the main benefit. Ultimately, of course, the ease of generation of token, I mean, and also innovation around this space. I mean, we have quite a I'd say traditional offer right now, but clearly this can be expanded into many different areas. I mean, people can create tokens to unlock lots of different value in different areas. I mean, it's definitely attracting people in the gaming industry. It's definitely, we've got other functionality and advantages. Once you've shown that you can couple someone else's value to a traditional purchase of a service.
Nice one. Sorry, I lost my mouse for a second then. That all makes perfect sense. The next question then is, are we able to name anyone who we're talking to about this? And have we signed agreements with them, or are due to sign agreements with them on mutually beneficial terms? Now, I'm sure we can't talk about any agreements with specific telcos, but could we say maybe some of them we are talking to?
Exactly. We need to be a bit careful here. They're just in sort of final discussion stage. So certainly, I've mentioned the geography. So our major discussions is with major telcos in Africa and equally in Europe. So without naming names, we can say that they are major players. And they are innovators in the space. So I think most people will certainly have had contact with some of the suppliers and be customers of the telcos that we're speaking to. We are, of course, keen to be able to come out as soon as possible with partnership statements. So I would say this is still taking time, but let's aim for mention at the end with the end of Q4 this year.
Cool. So it'd be fair to say then, without mentioning specific names, if you have a mobile phone in Europe or in Africa with one of the major providers, there's a strong chance we're talking to them. Would that be fair?
That would be fair, yes.
Cool. Then moving on then, what, if any, new partners will we be able to start cooperating with in this or in the third quarter?
Yeah, so as mentioned, this fits telcos so well because they already have an offer, and of course it goes hand in glove with Minima. So telcos are the primary target. Equally, as I mentioned before, it fits nicely with our work in automotive, and here we're moving rapidly into a time of connected mobility. So cars are going to have continuous connectivity. So here we have a very similar offer where car companies will be able to tokenize value that they offer, in particular EV charging. And equally, you've got the same offer here where third parties can subsidize those tokens. So you may have a dashboard where you've got your EV charging tokens, and equally they can be accruing value from third parties, either directly related to car, like mechanical services or roadside services, but it may be have further reaching, such as just retail and and shopping. So they are two areas that go very much hand in hand. An area that is less obvious, but something that we are also pursuing, is in the area of logistics and track and trace. So here you have one provider that aggregates lots and lots of information from different players along the route. And equally here, that idea of tokenization of the data allows access rights. So this is where we are seeing that basically Minima will have huge value in the area of transport. So by being able to have a token that is read, received, and validated from nodes, passing on information from disparate areas. So in other words, you may have, in the case of package transport, you may have a port that accepts the toll of a ferry, and that then can be passed to another station that has recorded, for example, the weight of the transport. So you've got a mechanism for passing information from two very distant services, but everyone is seeing the same information. So that is where it's heading, but that is further down the track. But for now, I think that we're fair to say that we're focusing just on telco and auto industry.
Yeah, which makes sense because they have such massive customer bases and are ideal for deploying our technology in a way where the end user doesn't actually need to be actively aware that technology is there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So exactly, yeah. So this will be embedded and it will just run on the background of the existing services.
Wonderful. So then I'm being asked, to what extent can the Minima blockchain be used across industry, services or trade? I suppose it touches on what we're just talking about, but I mean, Minima as a concept and a technology is a bit of a Swiss Army knife, right?
Exactly. I mean, the key as always, going back to the core principle, it stands for censorship resistance. So how do you make sure that data is tamper-proof? And that's where real value is added. So the tokens for loyalty points, of course, has value for the consumer, but in the grand scheme of things, if one token is lost here or there, that doesn't have major consequences. When you start talking about data that has mission critical information, or you start talking about transfer of value that has national ramifications, at that point, of course, securing that information is critical. So, as you said, our target has always been the same, which is that we will grow adoption through users. We'll make sure that people have value in this. But ultimately, as we see Minima's function is going to be the validation of information sent peer to peer. And as we're also, people are understanding the ramification of decentralization, but most people still want a safety blanket. They still want someone to turn to if something is lost. They still want someone to ask if a transaction fails. So this is going to take mindset change for people to actually understand the value that can be offered. But equally, we're going to come across resistance because it is, it's going to have a new way of thinking and a new understanding of the consequences if you don't keep track of your own information or your own data.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the next question then is, what are the advantages in the field of ecology in comparison with other blockchains? Now, obviously, it's a hot topic right now. It has been for quite a while. We see the weather around us. We see the news that's coming out around the state of the ecology of the planet currently, and we know how power hungry blockchains are, particularly proof of work chains. So, interesting to hear your thoughts on that as a scientist yourself.
Exactly. So once again, Minima, the name Minima stands for the minimum amount of energy needed. So rather than a competitive consensus, it is a collaborative consensus. So Minima works by reducing the total energy consumed needed to secure the chain. It doesn't mean that it's zero, of course. There is a lot of work that needs to go in the background, but as we've seen now, we run Minima in full on very, very lightweight devices. So I think that it's becoming slightly outdated, the concern about boiling the oceans and all this energy loss. Once people understand that it's used for security, then and put it in perspective also to the energy that's used for all other services, banking services, for example, and the classic example of comparing it to the use of washing machines in a day. So this the energy use and also the data consumption is becoming less and less of an issue as very commercial, large scale sustainable energy sources are coming into everyday practice. So we are able to benefit, of course, from sustainable energy. That's also been one of the long-term goals of Minima, and it's even written early in the white paper that we believe that ultimately the energy produced to run Minima will all be from sustainable sources. So I'm less worried now from that perspective and that concern about the amount of energy use. And the other, going back to the car industry, very soon all connected cars will have Ethernet connections, allowing the passage of gigabytes of data. So we're rapidly moving into a connected world where that issue and that concern is disappearing. It's moving away. Just one other point on that. I mean, we are also collaborating with a very exciting carbon credit blockchain, where Minima is able to help to fractionalize carbon credits and allow people to buy carbon on demand to offset their particular transaction. So we are absolutely at the forefront of this technology here, where we are certainly aware of the issues, but believe that very soon it won't be a blocker in any way. It won't be seen as any negative concern.
Great. Then moving on from that, then we've been asked about promo work. So how is our promotional work carried out at the global level or scale? Are we planning any publicity stunts? I think from my side, with a marketing hat on, the focus is is very much on the partner side, because they have pre-existing and large budgets and reach and brand link-ups of their own. So once we start to be able to promote what we're doing with them, it will be done with them, not just ourselves, and that will give us a massive reach that is well beyond what we currently have. Would that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, the days of the ICOs and the board egg clubs and just marketing without any true value, those days are over. And Minima, from the very concept, as you know, and as the community know, we are all absolutely passionate about only promoting real value and never just doing publicity stunts. So we're adamant that everything that we work on has a commitment from partners, has real value, and so it does take time, of course. It is a different concept. It isn't just putting out something and trying to pump the price. We are working for long-term goals here. We're working for a system that is tested and tried and battle-tested. And that's why typically our partners are global players. They are people who are in it for the long term. They do care about data security and making sure that the tech that they adopt will carry them forward for a long time in the future. So it's tempting to say we could just go out with a big publicity stunt, but that has never been Minima's stance.
Yep, it's talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. It's about getting to work with these partners and getting them to a place where they will promote alongside with us in big endeavours that will change markets and change the way that people interact in their daily life with Web3. People that would give no thought to it before. That's the game. That's what we're working towards.
Yeah.
Oh, I do apologise about my voice. I think you're coming down with something, so I apologise everyone if I'm a bit croaky and creaky. You already touched, Adam, briefly on sort of the work that we're doing with automakers. We've got a few questions here about how we're progressing with our noding car, and also around Vault partners. Perhaps you could chat on that.
Sure. Good. I'll keep that brief, and then maybe we'll come up with some more detail a little later. We are progressing well, and again, talking about publicity, the Porsche work did raise attention, did sort of promote us onto the world stage, and we are solidifying partnerships. So we have very good relationship with one of the race teams in the UK, in the UK Cup, Carrera Cup, and the European Cup, and we are working now closely with the team. We have progressed. We have now got a prototype demonstrating aggregation of car data at source and then sending it across the Minima network and being able to read this. So this is very much work in progress and very exciting, but I'll leave that information for another feature, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But needless to say, again, we've focused on making sure that this is secure and robust. So it is exciting. We're continuing also to talk with our automotive partners for EV charging. That's got a lot of traction, a lot of interest, and again, something that I hope that we'll be able to announce in a relatively short time frame as we move into pilot scale discussions and confirmation.
Great. Looking at the remaining questions we got, they don't really relate to what we're talking to, so I think we'll save that for a general community call later in the month. There is one question about will there be a white paper around the Telco offering?
Absolutely, there will. There'll be a white paper, light paper. There'll be information coming both from the Telco side and from Minima too. So, of course, this is all part of the information that needs to be put out. But again, like I said, this is still early stage in the discussions. We are working out the logistics about where and who to test this with. So this will all come, of course, as we start to productize the offer.
Absolutely, and of course, working with global brands, it gives and it takes away. On the one hand, as we've already said, you get access to their large existing client base, co-marketing, but and brand name. But equally, on the other side of it, that comes with a heavy dose of commercial sensitivity. So we have to work to their timescales on a lot of things, which are, as I'm sure you'll understand, much slower than ours. But doesn't mean it won't happen, and we just got to play that in the way that they require us to. But it goes without saying, as soon as we can talk about anything, we will, because it's very exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody who works in the industry knows. I mean, these discussions do take years, and so, but that's the business. So we're now favour that, and as you said, as we can start to mention development, we will.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to scan through. That's all the questions we've got for today. So thank you everybody who've joined us. We'll get the call up online so you can listen back at your leisure. And thank you again to you, Adam, for taking the time to join us today to go over the branded tokens and rewards.
Yeah, very welcome. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks everyone. We'll speak to you again soon. Take care.